Hey YouTube, this is Jimmy John with the full summation. Alright, so today, well, let's talk about something new here. I think it's something that a lot of people just don't really. Oh, that was stupid. Fuck. Uh, I don't think it. I think a lot of people talk about this topic, uh, but I don't think that they go into it into the different nuanced context that maybe we should be looking into this. Um, Parenting. What is that? Where does it start? Where does it end? And what can we take from it? Okay. Ultimately, parenting is we are trying to give the offspring that we have created guidance, structure, and wisdom to be able to grow in life, become their own person, have success, as well as, you know, giving them a way of thinking that's going to hopefully lead them to success. And, being able to take care of themselves and, find a partner and things like that. So, as parents, now, full disclaimer, I have no kids of my own. My girlfriend has two little girls, and I have learned a lot in the last year as far as parenting, the challenges of it, what it takes to kind of run a household, all these different dynamics. Which, as a single male before, never had to experience, never had to, or just not that I never had to. I just never had the chance to. I guess maybe I don't know. Regardless, I mean, I think that that's just a bit irrelevant. I'm not here to be preachy to those who have children, nor to the ones who don't. I'm just here to kind of give my takes on this to say, where do we draw the line? What is being a good parent? What are good parent activities? As well as, does parenting stop at 18 or does it continue? Does it continue until you die? Does it continue until, uh, you know, into perpetuity, so to speak? And that's what I want to kind of talk about. So, when it comes to kids, they need structure. Structure, I think, is probably the number one dynamic that lacks amongst most parents. And when I say that, I'm saying that from the perspective of, most parents, they send their kids to school or daycare and they go to work, they come home, they do the dishes, they make dinner, bathe them, and that's about the routine. Maybe, a little TV time, so on and so forth. But what most parents lack in that is structure, okay? So, in all that I just listed as far as a daily life, right? Yeah, we get it. Okay, you got to go to work, kids have to be watched over, meals have to be made, things have to be done. But in that routine for yourself, there's nothing that's beneficial for the child. There's nothing that's going to help that child grow, okay? So, like, what I do is I like to sit down with the oldest because, she's about 8 years old and she's learning math, and I'm actually pretty good at math. So, I sit down and I handle that, and I do that about 2-3 times a week. Go over her homework, and once we finish her homework, we really stretch out into things that she hasn't seen before in regards to math. Nothing crazy like physics, but we're looking at long multiplication. Where she's doing 2 by 1s kind of thing. Like 52 times 2. I'm stretching her out to do like 310 times 52 kind of thing, stretching her out to 3 by 2s, 3 by 3s, so on. And I'm doing that because I'm trying to structure her to think ahead. We know that it's going to be coming in her curriculum, and if we can get some of the basic fundamentals out, then we can start expanding. And I think that that's probably a dynamic that a lot of parents lack anymore, is an ability to say structure for themselves, so then they can actually provide structure to their child to grow, learn, and really try to excel at these different dynamics that, quite frankly, they may get 30, 40 minutes in a classroom learning it each day. Maybe it's not even every day. And we're expecting these things to be reinforced. And that can't happen, I think one of the things that is sorely lacking is also teaching your kid to suss out bullshit. I mean, let's be honest here. I haven't seen so many kids as in the last year where, from either being teenagers to toddlers, where their ability to hear and recognize bullshit is so lacking. It's like it's non-existent, right? So if we can get to a point where we can bullshit our children, but not from the standpoint of that we want to lie to them, we want to mislead them, but to get them to actually critically think. Because, at Aaron Clary, that guy can be a genius sometimes. I was listening to him on a Rule Zero cast, I don't know, about a week or two ago, and one thing he was talking about was how he purposefully kind of feeds his nephews and nieces bullshit. It's not, heinous bullshit. It's not, the type of crap that, you really don't want to teach your kids, but it's little things. And what he starts doing is dosing them. And then eventually what happens is that these kids will start thinking critically and realizing that they really how to kind of put this is, I would say, if we can feed these kids, younger kids, small doses of bullshit in such a way that they can look at the direct world they're in versus what you're saying and be able to spot it and say, no, that's not right. It will provoke the critical thinking aspect that I think is lacking, but is also, I feel, most important to be teaching these kids, the new generation coming up. And you might be saying, hey, Jimmy John, what the fuck? I already do that, And I'm like, okay, I understand. However, are you actually doing it in such a way that is beneficial for them, or are you doing it in maybe a spiteful tone? Because I see a lot of parents also get spiteful. I see a lot of parents that love without boundaries, and that's cool. But I also see a lot of parents who don't love at all, and it's really disheartening to see these kids have to go through this. Now, I went through my own issues and I had to kind of reconcile a lot of my own things, but what is really sad is when you see parents just outright pick themselves over that kid. I see it way too often. And we all want to go to the bigger examples, the more dramatic examples, and sure, rightfully so. But let's take a look at the minor examples. Maybe it's you structured your life to where your kids have to tag along in order for you to be able to maintain your existence. Okay. And I don't know if you know someone who's like that or if you've ever met someone like that, but they are the kind of person that has every excuse in the book as to why they've done what they've done, but yet won't take an ounce of critical thinking to say, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And if we can get to a point as adults to say, this is fact, and what you are doing really only benefits you. I haven't heard. Kids are such parrots, and it's funny because I hear it all the time. You'll hear the parent talk, and then about 20 minutes later, when you ask maybe the kid, a teenager or whatever, for their maybe opinion on a topic that we were talking about, and the best answer they have is to almost verbatim repeat what their parents have said on the topic. I can get similar views, but the problem is that goes back to the critical thinking aspect. Why is the kid just parroting? Why doesn't he have his own ideas, his own thoughts, his own conveyances? And they don't have to be right and they don't have to be wrong. He just needs to come up with his own thought. And when I see this too often out of teenagers, it's really concerning because they were literally taught to take orders. And that is done by the school system, folks. That's done by daycare. That's done by leaving your kids in the hands of people who want to facilitate their own moral guidance on your children. This is why we have such a left-right paradigm anymore. You know, when it came to Gen X and when it came to the boomers, let's be honest here. You know, at least it was separate to a degree. You know, the politics wasn't their identity. And, you know, people actually, I think, to a small extent, actually gave a shit about each other. But anymore, I'm not seeing that. And unfortunately, with my generation, and I'm embarrassed to fucking be a part of sometimes, we're raising these kids from a moral and political goalpost that continuously moves. What the fuck is that? I mean, you're literally going to teach your kids to be fair weather voters. You're going to be teaching them how to be fair weather friends, fair weather adults, fair weather personalities that, you know, we can't have a tribe anymore. You know, that's probably one of the most frustrating things as an adult my age, as a man my age, is, you know, guys my age work a 9 to 5 fucking job. I work as many hours as I have to work, and sometimes that's weekends, sometimes that's not, you know. And it's really frustrating because, you know, they were taught, go to school, do the 9 to 5, you know, all this shit. So when I'm like, hey man, what are we gonna do? What can we do? Oh, you're busy, I'm busy. All right, well, nothing ever comes. You know, good luck finding a tribe anymore that, other than what's online, I'm saying in person. And all these different dynamics that I've been talking about affects the social acuity of an individual. You know, when you don't let your 8-year-old daughter go out and make friends because you're worried that the kid might get hit by a car. Okay, let's break that down a minute. Yeah, might get hit by a car. That is being a kid. Okay? But you can't hold the kid back and say, no, you can't go in because you have an irrational fear. And that's a selfish side of parenting that I think gets glossed over a lot. Because I see a lot of mothers, you know, especially in the world of single mothers anymore. I see this even more, is that these mothers want to mother from a standpoint of a selfish maternal perspective. I mean, I really don't fully get it. I'm still kind of figuring it out, but what I keep seeing is that decisions made by a single mother anymore, like say letting your kid go play with the girl down the street. I mean, yes, you need to evaluate, is the kid that she wants to go play with reasonable for her, you know, things like that, neighborhood, whatever. Obvious. However, if you are going to solely base your decision on a yes or no based on the fact that she might get hit by a car, well, I'm sorry, you might get hit by a bus tomorrow going to work. Those odds do not go away. Okay? So when we talk about parenting, we got to be able to sit and step back, I think. It's hard. There's time. These kids aren't even mine, and there are times I'm like, probably not the best idea, but you gotta let them make mistakes. You gotta let them learn. It's the pain that teaches us, people, whether you're male or female. Okay, pain is a great lesson. It really is. Okay, so now that we've talked about all that, let's talk about how this kind of translates to maybe a different context here. And I think that this context I'm about to talk about is one of the least talked about perspectives. It's probably one of the most talked about as far as complaints, but maybe not talking about in regards to solutions, what this is doing, how this is affecting maybe yourself, maybe those involved in your relationship or whatever. But let's look at parenting in the context of, you know, say as a parent, you're in your 60s, 70s, and maybe you have kids my age, right? In their mid 30s. Okay. They want to get married. They want to have a relationship, and grow, right? One of the most annoying things that I see is when you have parents who maybe they've lived a great life. Maybe they've lived a life that is respectable, is worth following, is worth being mentored by. Very possible, okay? This, I think, dynamic includes everyone, okay? Whether it's an invasive mother or an invasive father, or if you're lucky enough, maybe you got both. But let's talk about that. Invasion by parents. Okay. Well, the discussion always is, when does parenting end? And, I think every parent alive, even those who are step parents who may not have their own children, would agree that for the most part, well, in pretty much every case, that parenting does not end at 18. It is something that is continued until you die. And we all get that. We all understand that. We recognize that. Okay. Let's get that on the table. But what we're talking about now is we have this issue where parents, like, the only kind of thing I can talk about right now is what I know. And the situation that I know is that, like, there's this older guy, the father of this girl, okay, this woman. And she left a bad relationship, which rightfully so. I mean, I've heard the details and I'm not too kind to it myself, but let's take these facts, okay? So dad helped her kind of rebuild. She's been on her own now for, been divorced on her own for about 3-4 years, okay? Now, she gets into a relationship with another individual, another guy, okay? And the guy, I think, she holds in high esteem, she regards, and she respects, and she wants to build more of it. And then what ends up happening is that it's like a power tussle between the father and the new guy. And this dynamic, I don't think gets talked enough about. I don't think it's something that gets discussed. It gets really heard. It gets listened. But, if you're a guy, okay, and you're in a relationship with a woman and you're trying to build your future, okay, maybe you don't know where it is. Maybe it's still new. Maybe you're in the first year. Maybe you're, getting into the second year. Let's take it from that perspective, is that as a man, typically, if it's a man who has his shit together, then what you're going to end up finding is that man is going to want to build something with that woman. And what he's going to expect is that he's going to expect a level of respect and a level of authority. Now, what does that mean? Okay, well, we talk about respect and authority. Well, respect for men is meritocracy versus respect for women is social, okay? Women just expect respect to have respect to say it's respect, if that makes sense. Versus men, with men, you don't get a high just because you fucking exist. That's just how it is. We are not recognized for actually just basic existence. We have to do things. We have to build things. We have to say things. We have to be philosophical about things. We have to make our reality, make our dreams our reality. Therefore, we can be able to share with others. Okay? And so, the issue that I found is, like, in this situation, the guy was trying to lead her down a road, trying to take care of her, trying to set up an ideal kind of setup where, eventually, with the hard work of both, they can grow an organization, okay? And right from the get-go, it was kind of expected, paying 40 hours for maybe 15, 20 hours worth of work because, the person's new. I get it. But then it ended up being taken advantage of and turned kind of on the individual. And I think that after diving into this, finding out that the reality is that the woman's father was chirping the entire time, and not just chirping, but actually dictating out the steps and what should be done because he didn't like it. Okay. And let's talk about that. Okay. So this is the dynamic of parenting that I kind of wanted to get into. Is when is it okay as a parent to your adult child to make their decisions for them? And is it right for you to make your kid feel guilty if they do not choose what you decided as a parent? Okay, let's talk about that. Now, I was very blessed and fortunate with my father, where he taught me early on very useful skills with people and, in my environment. Okay, I'm a tradesman. And one thing I always learned, that I always took a value from him, and he'd mention it from time to time, which was, son, I have to let you make your own decisions. I can tell you what I think is the right thing to do, but I can't tell you that it's the right thing for you. And that was always something that I kind of grasped onto and I held onto and I valued as a young man, because I didn't have the pressure of my father sitting up here saying, hey, you need to live your life like this. My father more or less said, you're going to live the life you're going to live. Just try and be a good person. Try and be moral. Have a moral compass and be the best that you can be at whatever you're going to do. And that last segment is probably the hardest. And I mean the absolute hardest to actually get done. But at the end of the day, I was allowed to have my own life. I was allowed to grow. And I think as a parent, that's important for your kids. Your kids need to know that they can make the mistakes and go on. Maybe genetics is inheritable, but they don't have to get maybe intelligence is genetic, excuse me. And maybe they inherited that dynamic from you. But that doesn't mean that they're going to take the exact same path as you to realize their genetic intelligence. Okay? So, in my opinion, I think, going back to the gal and the guy here, I think that it is wrong for the father to have intruded so much within that relationship to basically leave it to her daughter as his decision is the only right decision and no other decision can be right because of his experience. What's the old saying, guys? If you're from the South, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So when I hear shit like this, I'm like, okay, well, this doesn't make any sense. Why, if this was coming from an altruistic dynamic, then why are we trying to fall back on the platitude of parenthood? Okay? Let's be honest. Comments that get made in that kind of context from a father to a son or a father to a daughter where they don't agree with what their kid is doing. If this was a situation of, hey, you know what, you got a bad cocaine problem, you might want to stop it, versus that guy is toxic, and not toxic like he's beating her or he's verbally abusing her, but from the dynamic of he has a shit together, he has standards, he has boundaries. Why aren't you not enforcing them? Or why are you not staying within them? People think nowadays, and I think that this is due to the blue pill fathers, along with solipsistic women. Okay, throw in a shake of hubrism. Okay. We have gotten to a point where we will give our daughters the advice that's best for them. Okay. As a general, that is what we do. But I've seen men give their daughters advice that is not beneficial for the male in that relationship. If that male is a good man and that man is a respectable man and that man is someone that should be held in high esteem. Okay? No, they're going to get the advice from their blue pill fathers as, do what's best for you, girl. Oh, well, if you don't like the feeling of it, you shouldn't do it. you don't like the fact that he's setting boundaries for you. You know, he said, hey, if you're going to make a mess, clean up after yourself, or say, you know, hey, I'm going to pay all the bills and the least you could do is, you know, help this household come along. Then where do you expect these girls to go, dude? Like, serious. Let's have that conversation as men. If you're just going to tell your fucking daughter to do whatever the fuck she feels is good, what does that do for our... What does that do for our society? What does that do for our generations? What does that do for their children? Okay? I mean, the human civilization was built on the back of work, built on the backs of adversity. But I don't want to use that word, of toil. Okay? Society was made on the back of struggle, toil, and adversity. Okay? What does that mean? It means we had it hard. And when we had it hard, we fucking did things a certain way because we realized, hey, we can mitigate risk here. We can continue to raising the next generation of children and not compromise ours, but also not compromise their future. Okay? Hey, we're gonna grow corn. I'm gonna teach my son how to grow corn. Okay? I'm not teaching my son how to grow corn because I want him to fucking grow corn. No, maybe we live in a time where growing corn, maybe this guy's actually going to stand out in his community. Maybe now him learning how to grow corn sets him up with how to deal with relationships in life, how to deal with adversity in life, because God knows growing corn is not fucking easy. But no, we're just going to sit here and we're just going to keep telling our little girls, hey, it's okay, do what you feel is right. You know, gut instinct is one thing. I believe gut instinct, it's different in perception between men and women. But going back to what I was saying about the intrusion side is that if we're going to be so intrusive as to tell our girls how to live their life, what guy they should be with, all these other things, okay? If we're going to have that, then we need to be able to remove ourselves out of that conversation, because I think what ends up happening is that that as parents, they aren't making decisions. They think in their mind, okay, that they're making decisions that they see is best for their kid, okay, their child, whatever. You know, say it was me and my son, okay, me or my daughter. And in most cases, most parents give advice to their offspring from the context of what they feel is right. And I get that, because a lot of it is perception. You know, we know our rights and wrongs based on the experiences that we have developed. Okay. But that's not the same as, you know, removing ourselves out of it and saying, you know what, well, maybe you should take that job. Or maybe you should settle down and have a family, because that's really where most women find their nurturing need. Okay. I think a lot of that kind of mentality, the mentality of being able to settle down, the mentality of being able to find a mate, has kind of been conditioned out of society. You know, I will do my own podcast on the destruction of we'll do an episode on the destruction of the nuclear family, the family unit, because I do think that a lot of this was planned. I think that it wasn't just planned, it is something that has been thought of and wanted to happen for so long. Okay. The family, the nuclear family, you know, where family actually takes care of family and we really look out. You know, yeah, was there a time when we sold our daughters for goats and milk, or, you know, whatever it was? Yeah. And that wasn't because we sold our offspring as commodity. You know, a lot of the time it was networking. A lot of the time it was, you know, we were trying to blend networks, trying to blend families, and, you know, nothing is free. So when a father of a son has to pay an endowment for for this guy's daughter, okay, well, that's because the reality is that daughter was a woman or a girl that was very, very valuable at the time, whether it was because of, depending on the era, could have been breeding purposes, could have been legacy, could have been namesake. We don't know. But the fact is that they have value, but the fact is that value was very intrinsic. So the best way we could do it was we would say, okay, well, what's best for your family? What does your family need? Okay, what can we provide? And so that's when, you would get the 4 goats, 2 head of sheep, and, 10 cattle. And it wasn't because your daughter was worth all that. It's because it's a blending. My family, as having a son, needs to have a wife, and it needs to be a wife that is of a certain stature. Okay, that's where a lot of that comes from. And to go to a guy and say, your daughter should marry my son, and this is why. What can I do to facilitate that? Well, now this, the father or the daughter is saying, hey, I need 12 goats, 2 head of cattle, and 3 sheep. Well, that's how that all ended up coming around. But nowadays, we don't even really have. It is not. I believe that this has kind of gone by the wayside. But the social context of having to ask a daughter's father for permission to marry their daughter. Okay. I think when fathers started teaching their daughters how to hoe and their daughters how to take advantage of other men, and for as men who have daughters, not me, but others, but for them to have basically laid the floor with a gold path of good intention just to send them straight to hell. Asking the father now has gone by the wayside. Why would anyone ever do that anymore? I mean, honestly, people, why would you do that anymore? If the girl's father didn't even care enough to teach her how to be a proper woman, why would you even consider asking him to say, hey, can we blend families? Hey, can I marry your daughter? And what's funny is that dynamic used to really play out when you have virginic women, by the way. Or women where they kept it very hush-hush. And it was a thing because, a virginic woman has had such value for so long because it was a paternity issue. That's all it really was. It was never socioeconomical. It was all about paternity, okay? So if that was all regarding paternity and virginic women are now, hard to come by, okay, when the average girl that you meet by the age of like 20 has been hit by 15 dudes, okay, versus way back when, and the girl was never touched. She could wear white, and it was legit. So, getting back, I think intrusive parenting has created a cycle for the next generation, because what I think it's going to end up doing is, and I kind of see it with my chick, between her father and her girls, it's actually kind of an interesting dynamic, because you see from the father to her, a level of intrusion, and then you see that all it has done is multiply to her kids. What do I mean by that? What I mean by it is, she may have had some garden variety of control and chirping in her ear, just by conditioning for all the years that she grew up. And then what ends up happening is that she takes that and she's internalized that as this is how parenting is done. And then what ends up happening is that she applies it to her own children, but instead of coming from a rationale of am I teaching them, or versus are they just doing what I'm asking, or a control dynamic, then you see what happens is that it gets multiplied, whether 2, 3, 4 times. And then what ends up happening is now it's no one's going to recognize where the source of the problem was. No one's going to change their ways, which, hey, I get it. And I like to think that I'm a more reasonable, level-headed individual in this relationship, and that I can, really show her girls the difference of parenting, the differences of being raised, what to learn, what's important in life, If you were raised by a liberal who the only thing that that person cared about was uh, saving the rainforest, well, that's all that kid's ever going to care about. That's all that kid's ever going to know. Which is why I think it's important that we feed them bullshit. I think it's important that we, you know, drop these little nuggets with these kids and see if they can pick it up, see if they can figure it out. I do. I really do. It's unfortunate that more don't, but, you know, it is what it is. So, you know, I could go on forever with this topic, really. I mean, let's be honest here. It's that fine line of having a soft, benevolent hand while also wielding the power of authority. And most people can't get in the middle of this and say, well, how do I become the benevolent leader that people respect? So if that's the question you're asking, or if that's the answer you're trying to find, then I think what you got to do is look more internal and break your dynamics down to a philosophical level. Is what you're doing making sense? Is what you're doing encouraging growth, encouraging prosperity in these kids? Because the fact is that these kids are sponge, and what is it, from the ages of 5 to 12, kids absorb more information in that time period than any other time period in their life. Okay, so why aren't we teaching these kids at the age of 5 how to cook, how to clean, how to fix things, how to use tools, how to be socially acumen to society, knowing how to build relationships, knowing how to build friends, huh? I mean, why is that so hard? So, all right. Well, hey, looks like the grifties are on. I think what we're going to do is that we're going to end this stream here in a second, and we're going to look at covering the grifties. Why? Because everyone loves grifts. Everyone pivots. Everyone's making money on some other misfortune. But I was looking at the list today, and looks like, who is number one today? Number one persona on the grifties with Hotep is Eliza Blue. Now, that is a whole fucking topic I am still learning about. It is absolutely mind-numbingly hard to read through this bullshit, but I will do it for you guys. Apparently, she's wrapped up with Tate somehow with the sex trafficking thing, and the fact is that the whole Tate thing is separate. I think I don't fucking get it, but hey, tune in if you want to figure this out with me. Maybe we'll do it on the fly. We'll do some deep diving research live on air. But right now we have Eliza Blue is number one, and number two is the Young Turks. Well, number two persona is Thunberg, which I get it. Okay, so the number one grift in groups is the January 6th committee. Go fucking figure. Is that the politicians or is that the people who actually raided the Capitol? Not sure. I would think it'd be the politicians. I love how they put anonymous. Now number two, which looks like it has increased the spot, is the Young Turks, which, you know, Chank, if you ever hear this, yeah, go fuck yourself. You are such a weird person. All you do is fucking talk shit about others and you make no sense, bro. I mean, seriously. All you do is eat their fucking Kool-Aid, man. Keep drinking it. You're going to go far, man. And then number three is Daily Wire. I think that's going to be... even the Grifties made the Grifties list. Oh, that's great. They're number 4. They're down a spot. Apparently, they were at number 3. So, if you guys want to hear more, then let's tune in here in a little bit. We'll go over. We'll see what they play on the Grifties this year. Let's see who takes number 1 in each category and who takes the overall. Till next time, Jim John from the Full Summation.